Welcome to Better Than Ever Live, coming to you live from Charleston, South Carolina, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. I hope you're making today your masterpiece. My name is Dr. David Geier, orthopedic surgeon, sports medicine specialist, aspiring behavioral scientist, and media medical expert. I help you feel and perform your best regardless of age, injury, or medical conditions. I'm coming to you a little disoriented because I had a really busy clinic trying to help people get over injuries and all kinds of crazy things, and just barely made it. I apologize if I was a couple minutes late getting the live stream started, but I am thrilled to be here because we're going to talk a lot today about probably my favorite aspect of health, and that is longevity. Aging, health span, living longer, but not just feeling longer, feeling great, feeling vibrant, being active as you get older, not just being old for the sake of living that long. We're going to talk a lot about that today. If you have any comments, whether you're watching live on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, leave the comments and I will try to address those or mention them later in the show. I'd love to hear your first name and where you are, and then comments about what we're talking about today. If you're listening on podcast, but you want to watch this live, follow me on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Sign up for notifications, and you'll be notified whenever we're on live. A lot to get to. Everything, as always, that I'm going to mention today, all these health news, these health studies that I'm going to talk about, I'm not giving you medical advice. This is meant for general information and educational purposes only. I haven't seen you, I haven't examined you, looked at x-rays, MRIs, lab results, any of that. I'm not your doctor, you're not my patient, so this is not specific medical advice. If you have specific medical concerns, talk to your doctor. All right, a lot to get to. The reason longevity, aging, health span, that kind of thing matters to me is that, yeah, I want to live, 80s, 90s, maybe past 100, but I don't want to be old and decrepit and a failing brain and all that. I want to be vibrant. I want to be able to, play with my kids and grandkids and do everything that they do physically. I want to be able to lift weights. I want to be able to run. I want to, potentially be able to hike mountains and do, play sports, all kinds of things as I get older. And so I do all sorts of stuff to maintain my health. I mean, literally earlier today before I started clinic, I saw my doctor had lab results drawn, testing for all this kind of stuff that I get every 3 months, and got literally a shopping bag full of medicines and supplements and collagen peptide powders and all these different things. I'm using myself almost as a guinea pig to try some of these things, peptides and other things that I feel like are very helpful for people that I take care of, to see how well they potentially would work for all of my aches and pains, and whether some of these do extend my telomere length and protect my DNA and all the different things that some of these medications and supplements do. So I care about this a lot. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today deals with longevity. Not all of it. We do have an interesting study showing how a third of people find one specific person in their life the most annoying person they know. That'll be fun to wind up with. But let's talk DNA and longevity. So if you know anything about DNA and the strands of DNA, basically what makes up your genes, your genetics, the telomeres are the caps on the end of the DNA. They sort of protect the DNA. The longer the telomeres are, the more your cells continue to divide, the longer you're going to live. As those telomeres get shorter, basically your cells can't divide anymore, the cells start to die, probably don't have as long to live. So it's all about how we can preserve our telomere length. In fact, one of the medications that I'm on, that's thought to be one of its biggest goals. So that's something to think about. But having said that, there was an interesting study from the American National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences that looked at the role of stress on the length of your telomeres and on your DNA. They had almost 650 people in it between 35 and 74 years old. They measured the telomere length, I'm sure that's a blood draw, measured the telomere length of all of those people, and then also measured levels of 3 stress hormones. And we talked about stress hormones in a prior episode of this show. Epinephrine or adrenaline, norepinephrine or noradrenaline, and cortisol. I don't know, maybe this will surprise you, maybe it won't, but the people that had the shortest telomeres presumably the shortest amount of time left to live were the ones that had the highest levels of stress and the lowest levels of cortisol, which comes about with chronic stress. So stress seems to damage your DNA, or at least the telomeres that protect your DNA. And here's the thing, those effects got worse the older you got. Before the age of 55, the stress affected the telomeres, but you had time to repair it. But after age 55, there was no going back. There was no way to repair that damage. So do everything you can to get stress out of your life. I mean, that goes without saying for a number of different reasons, but especially by the time you hit age 55, you need to be living a fairly low stress. And we've talked about ways, it's meditation and breathing techniques and exercise and even being with a therapist and avoiding toxic people in your life, whatever it is. But you've got to get your stress levels, especially your chronic stress levels, work, relationships, otherwise, under control if you want to live longer. But again, it's not just about living longer. It's about what we call feeling great and health span. One of the components of longevity is heart health. And if the number one killer in the world is cardiovascular disease. The World Health Organization says almost 18 million people a year die of cardiovascular disease. And to be honest, I actually would have thought it was higher than that. So if you have a heart attack or have a stroke, consequently, you're probably going to live a shorter life. So we know the stuff to do to protect our hearts, right? Exercise on a regular basis, no smoking, eat a healthy, balanced diet, keep your weight down, things like that. Well, a new study or a combination of studies shows there's one particular food that might be very good, not just for your heart and other aspects of your health, but give you a longer life. And that food is avocados. I don't know if that surprises you or not. A lot of times, when I was younger, avocados were thought to be horrible for you because they were all fat. Well, avocados have monounsaturated fat, which I would argue is probably a pretty good source of fats, but they also have potassium and fiber. Here's the thing. One study, Journal of Nutrition, an avocado every single day reduces your LDL cholesterol. That is your bad cholesterol. Also, avocados, I'm struggling to say that today, they increase your HDL cholesterol, which is your good cholesterol. Avocados, if you have one a day in one of your 3 meals, it gives you a healthier gut microbiome. We've talked about gut bacteria before and their importance in immune system, immune function, things like that. Avocados have a lot of what's called oleic acid, one of the monounsaturated fatty acids, which helps your heart by lowering inflammation. So avocados lower inflammation. They decrease LDL, bad cholesterol. They increase HDL, good cholesterol, and they improve your gut microbiome, which is good for all sorts of health reasons. So avocados seem to be very, very important to your heart health, your overall health, and your longevity. I don't honestly eat a lot of avocados, to be perfectly honest. I want to because I know how healthy they are. So, and I have friends that eat a lot of avocados and make guacamole and things like that. So if you have any good avocado recipes, send those my way. I'm completely serious. Would be very grateful for that because I do want to start adding avocados. I actually have a friend, he's a big keto person, that will literally make this guacamole with, pure, avocados and just some other healthy things, and literally just dips celery sticks in them and just eats. His whole lunch will be a whole bowl of guacamole. It's the craziest thing. So if you have good recipes for avocados, send those my way. Something else good for your longevity, omega-3 fatty acids. We know these because it's in salmon and other fatty fish, things like walnuts and chia seeds and flax seeds. And we know that they're good for your health. But a new study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, people who have the highest levels of omega-3 fatty acids in their blood live up to 5 years longer than people who don't have those kind of levels of omega-3 fatty acids. And the thought is that they lower inflammation. I've talked before about how systemic inflammation is so bad for you in so many ways, but it is really bad on your longevity. Omega-3 fatty acids. Think about that at some point. And then let's talk about a behavioral fix to help you live longer, basically. And it gets to your sleep patterns. Ask yourself as you're listening to this or watching this, are you a night person or are you a morning person? I am 100% a morning person. I have been since I was a little kid. Love to get up early, kind of struggle late at night. I can't get anything productive done at night. But I know a ton of people that are night owls. They function best 9, 10 p.m. and later, and then they are worthless in the morning. Well, it actually might affect how long you live. A study out of Northwestern and University of Surrey in the UK found that night owls have a 10% higher risk of dying earlier than morning larks. And this was a study of over 500,000 people in the United Kingdom. And the thought is, at least, they can't prove that this is why those people have a higher risk of early death, but the thought is that we are a morning lark society. Work starts early, our days start early, and then it ends at a reasonable time so that you can, in theory, go to bed after spending time with your family and eating and things like that. It is not designed to stay up till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and then you sleep till noon, because jobs typically start earlier. And they think that that's bad for your overall health, that it leads to psychological stress because you're not sleeping well, you stay up late, and then you have to get yourself up in the morning. It ends in you not eating at a time that's best for your biologic clock, your circadian rhythm. It leads to not exercising enough, not sleeping enough, being awake at night by yourself, potentially drug and alcohol abuse because you're up late at night, all sorts of unhealthy behaviors. Now, it would be easy to say, well, then just do what you can and become a morning person. And I do know people very close to me that have made themselves start to wake up at 4:15 and 4:30 and start exercising, being on the track at 5 a.m. and more power to you. That's harder to do than you think. Most people, you're either a morning owl or a morning lark or a night owl. It's really hard to switch. It's possible to gradually shift it down, but you've got to do what you can to kind of fit your activities, your work, everything on your biological clock. And so, they suggested, well, maybe we allow night owls to start work later. That's not realistic. I mean, let's be fair. That's like one of the political parties in the U.S. about 8 years ago tried to mandate a 4-day work week in the United States. Obviously, that got nowhere, but I just, they were arguing, too much stress in this country, blah, 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 because I guess France does it. And it got nowhere. Just saying, all right, we're going to start the school day, we're going to start the work day at 10 a.m. instead of 8. It just doesn't work that way. They'll just say, oh, we'll find somebody that will come in the morning. But maybe you look for a job that gives you more flexibility with your schedule. Maybe you're still a night owl, but you avoid a lot of those unhealthy behaviors. You still exercise, you still get enough sleep as best you can, maybe more naps during the day, maybe less alcohol, less smoking, things like that. Trying to be healthy. I know that's not an answer, but morning larks seemingly have a lower risk of early death. All right, something else that I love to do as part of my healthy strategy, health span, so to speak, is something that everybody's probably heard of, intermittent fasting. And to be fair, I hate that term because it's sort of misleading. Is it that you do a 7-day fast every so often, making it intermittent? What most people think of as intermittent fasting is truly called time-restricted feeding. You eat all your meals in a narrow window of time. Maybe you fast for 16 hours, eat your 2 meals in an 8-hour window, or 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating. The OMAD diet, 1 meal a day, is basically 23 hours of fasting with your 1 hour of eating. Well, we know, based on a study that I'm going to read, but it's been shown before, that intermittent fasting seems to be good with your health span. Not just helping you live longer, but getting rid of a lot of the health diseases and other health risks that contribute to just poor health. It can actually make you feel better. And the question was always, well, why is that? Well, there was a study done out of Colombia, and it was in the journal Nature. They looked at fruit flies. Now, before you think, why do I care about fruit flies? And this is really interesting. Fruit flies are very similar to humans. They have the same basically biologic clocks. They're active during the day, they sleep at night. They have about 70% of the same genes that we have for a variety of diseases. They go through basically the same aging process that humans, they just do it a lot faster. Their life cycle is only 2 months long. So to study some sort of intervention and then see what effect it has on their aging can be done fairly quickly, whereas in humans, you'd have to study the same people for 20, 30, 40 years. So fruit fly studies actually very, very helpful. So what they did is this is crazy that they did this. They put fruit flies on 4 different feeding schedules. 24 one group, 24 hours got to eat just anytime they wanted to, basically what most humans do. And then one group, they got 12 hours access of food, 12 hours off. One group, 24-hour fasts, 24-hour unrestricted feeding, just alternating 24 on, 24 off. And then one was the time-restricted feeding, 20 hours of fasting, and then 4 hours of feeding, and then a recovery day the next day. Why does that matter? Okay, only one group had a longer life, had an extended lifespan, and that was the time-restricted feeding group. 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating, and again, it wasn't every day, just with a day recovery between it. The reason I bring this up is what seems to be important is not just the intermittent fasting, it's the timing of the intermittent fasting. The only fruit flies that had the longer lifespan are the ones that basically broke the fast. Their 4-hour feeding window was around lunchtime so that they fasted through the night. And why that is that was the only cycle of fasting, basically eating your meal around lunchtime or your 4 hours of food around lunchtime, not at dinner time, that was when it promoted autophagy. And that's a process that goes on in your body where you get rid of the breakdown products of cells and things like that. It basically helps you heal, helps you live longer. It's especially important in your brain. But it only worked if that fast extended through dinner and then throughout the night. So that may be tough for a lot of people, if this applies to humans, that you would eat your food around lunchtime and not around dinner. That's really tricky socially, both with family and friends, but it is something to think about. But the group that was the fruit flies ate their 4 hours of food around lunchtime, better muscle function, better neuron function, neurological function, decreased age-related protein aggregation, which is typically really good for the brain, and delayed onset of aging markers. So something to think about. Intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding, very, very beneficial. We'll talk more about fasting in another show, but the timing of it may play a really crucial role. I actually love when I do my 1 meal a day to make that lunch. It's just tricky a lot of times with my work schedule trying to get a break to eat lunch, but that is something worth thinking about. All right, if you could be 3 years younger, would you do it? And would you do what's necessary to do it? 3 years, not just, like socially go back 3 years, but like your body is 3 years younger. Would you do it? Well, there is a new study that suggests if you follow a specific regimen for 8 weeks, only 8 weeks, you cut your biologic age by 3 years. This is fascinating to me. Randomized control study, 43 men between the ages of 50 and 72. Half did a specific diet and lifestyle regimen. We'll talk about that in a second. Half did nothing. And they did this basically on DNA samples looking at what's called DNA methylation, which is a fancy way of saying DNA damage, which predicts aging and longevity. And the group that underwent the diet and lifestyle, just that life change, diet change, life change for 8 weeks, reduced their biological age by 3.25 years. And they only did it for 8 weeks. So here's what they did, or what they had to do. All right, first of all, plant-based diet. And I know I've been not critical, but a plant-based diet would be very hard for me, but I really would consider trying it for a couple months because I know there's tons and tons and tons of benefits of a plant-based diet. They were allowed nutrient-dense animal proteins, liver and eggs, but it was mostly a plant-based diet high in folate, vitamin C, vitamin A, curcumin, ECGC. I'm not even going to try to say what that is. It's common in green tea, quercetin, and I don't know, some other thing. Lots of nutrients. Restricted carbs, mild intermittent fasting. They also took a probiotic that provided Lactobacillus plantarum. So that was their diet. Plant-based diet, probiotics, restricted carbs, time-restricted feeding. Exercise, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week or more at 60 to 80% of maximum exertion. So that's not all out, but that is working out pretty hard. That's not just going to be lazily walking around the lake. That's going to be moving a little bit, 30 minutes a day, at least 5 times a week. And then twice a day, they had to do breathing exercises that stimulated what's called the relaxation response. Basically, is a physical state of deep rest, helps you deal with stress. And last, they had to sleep at least 7 hours a night. So ask yourself, could you do that? Or would you do that? Does lowering your biologic age 3 years matter that much? To me, I would do that in a heartbeat. None of that to me is all that hard. The hardest one for me would be the plant-based diet, but you could still eat eggs, so I feel like I'd at least get my protein that way. Probiotic, already do that. Exercise, already do that. I don't do the breathing exercises, but I know that I need to do that. But that would just be something I have to make myself do. And I would have to just be more conscious more often about my sleep. To me, that seems worth it. Now, we're going to have to do that in bigger numbers to see if all that replicates. But all of those activities, all of those lifestyles are healthy. They're all things that anybody can do. We're not talking about taking fancy medications or doing all these injections or, hyperbaric oxygens, or we're not talking about any of that. We're just talking about changing your diet, exercising, sleeping, probiotics, stress reduction. I mean, all things that we can do. And last, I like to do one fun study. This is my fun study of the day. Ask yourself while you're sitting here listening or watching me, who is the most annoying person that you know? It would be easy for me just to say everybody. Everybody annoys me. That's not really true. I like a lot of people, but I get annoyed, especially when I'm driving. I'm easily annoyed. But who is that for you? All right. There's a study, or really a survey in the United Kingdom, in England, that found a third of the people that responded, and there were like 2,000 people that did this survey. 1/3 of the people said that the most annoying person that they know is their partner, their husband, wife, long-term boyfriend, long-term girlfriend. 1/3 of the person that they're soulmates, that they're living with, they're spending the most of their time with, is the most annoying person that they know. And it was because of habits that drove them crazy. They spend 1/5 of their day feeling frustrated. That's almost 5 hours a day hating their partner's awful habits. And so just get a list of a load of the list of things that annoy people about their partners. Snoring, flatulence, being loud, being messy, being rude, talking during TV shows, being bad with money, using their phone mid-conversation. I know a lot of people who text literally as they're talking to somebody else. Leaving clothes on the bedroom floor, leaving crumbs in the kitchen, and of course, never listen. The people that said their partner, their significant other was the most annoying person, said that there were 5 habits on average that annoyed them about the other person. Something else interesting about it. Over half of those people, how they chose to deal with it, they would sort of pick their moments and wait for the right time to point it out. But 1/3, more than 1/3, corrected their partner every single time, which makes me wonder how they're still in a relationship. How your partner doesn't just leave every single time you complain is beyond me. But there is good news. The reason I bring up this study. 41% of the people that said that their life partner was the most annoying person they knew, 41% said they would not change their partner's habits because it's what makes them them. It's what makes them special. So all is good. I think that's fascinating. I mean, to me, you try to figure that out on the front end. And if there's things that annoy you, bring it up and try to work it out before it becomes a problem that annoys you and frustrates you and becomes stress that shortens your DNA. Find the right person. Be the right person. I feel like people would be much, much happier. All right, that is all. Again, I am sorry that I was a few minutes late today. I hope this was good. If you're listening on podcasts, I would love to have you watch live. YouTube.com/Dr. David Geier, Facebook.com/Dr. David Geier, and LinkedIn. I don't know what. Just search Dr. David Geier. DrDavidGeier. So excited that you're here. Again, I mentioned this last show. I am looking at expanding this show and potentially changing the times. I'm starting to come around to moving this to 12 p.m. Eastern time and potentially many more days of the week. Maybe we add an Ask Dr. Geier segment where you just ask any kind of injury or health question you have. Some of it will be maybe spotlighting new treatments or new workout strategies or new nutrition. There's going to be lots of stuff that we're going to potentially play around with, but that is coming. I'm not 100% sure on the noon, but it'll either stay at 5 or it'll go to noon Eastern time. I'm almost certain. So pay attention to that. Subscribe on all 3 of those channels, and you'll see what time it is. Or if you don't really care because you can't be there live, subscribe to the podcast, Better Than Ever Live, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you on Thursday. A lot of cool stuff to talk about, including the most common nightmare that people have. Really, really interesting stuff. I'll see you then. Take care.